Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. Today I'm going to show you how you can make this fall pumpkin trinket tray using Redesign molds and decoupage paper. To begin, I'm going to be using Redesign's Contours of Grace mold, and I'm going to take out my hot glue gun, and starting in the center I'm going to make a little circle, and then I'm going to start adding lines of glue from the outside in. And I'm doing this so that I can create the look of the ridges that you see in pumpkins. I'm going to curve some of them. They're not going to be perfect in size or perfectly spaced out. This is going to mean that when I pour resin soon, that the glue, the hot glue, is going to stop it from going into those areas. I'm going to be pouring out equal parts step 1 and step 2 of a white fast cast resin, and then I'm going to stir that really well together. As you can see, I'm wearing gloves and I am using this in a well ventilated area. I'm then going to start pouring my resin into the Contours of Grace mold. My hot glue is set and cooled, and I'm also adding resin just to the leaves in the Golden Solstice mold. I really want those leaves on their own. I'm just pouring a little bit of resin out, and then I am going to be able to take my casting out after about 10 minutes. I'm going to bend and flex my casting so that I can separate the hot glue from the resin, and I'm going to then carefully start peeling the hot glue out, and this is going to leave those indents so that it looks more like the ridges that you would see on pumpkins. So I'm just going to pull all of those out. And then I'm going to take out this little wooden piece that I had in my stash and this little dowel, and I really want to have that in the center. I'm sort of shaping the Contours of Grace casting there a little bit, and I'm going to be measuring how much of the stick I want to keep, and then I'm going to snap the excess off. I'm using B7000 to attach my wood pieces. I'm adding some glue to the little dowel stick, putting that through the center there. I'm going to add some to the top of that round little craft piece there, and I'm also using hot glue for the immediate hold. So we have the super glue for the strong hold and the hot glue for the immediate hold. I'm then going to press the Contours of Grace over the top of that, and I held it in place just until that hot glue had a chance to grab. I'm going to add a little bit more glue. You can see where I've got a little bit of a gap there where the hot glue was a little bit too much. And on the back, anywhere that it looks a little bit thin, I'm just going to add a thin little bit of hot glue to make sure that there's no gaps. I'm going to add a bit more hot glue around the base. And then I took out the Cardinal Grace mold, and I'm actually just going to use hot glue for this. It's nice and easy, and I'm just adding it to the base of that branch. I wanted something that I could use that had a wood texture to make the stalk for the top section of the pumpkin. So I ended up actually casting 3 of these. So I'm going to take it out once the glue has cooled, and I'm going to add some hot glue to the little dowel stick in the center, and then I'm going to start gluing my 3 pieces of that branch from the Cardinal Grace mold to the little dowel there. So I'm just putting them up against each other, and as you can see, when I'm coming in now to add the 3rd piece, it really was the perfect way to create a wood look stalk for my trinket tray here. I'm going to use my scissors to trim off the excess from the top, and then I'm going to keep one of those pieces that we cut off, and I'm going to glue it on top of my pumpkin stalk to finish it off. So I'm just making sure that I'm happy with how that looks. And then I'm going to take out the leaves from the Golden Solstice mold that we cast earlier. You can see I have 3 here, and I'm going to use hot glue to attach those to my trinket tray. I'm putting them right up against the base of the stalk that we created and just spacing those out. And then once I have those in place, I'm going to carefully use my hot glue to create some little vines. So I'm going in quite thin and trying to create some curly looking vines, and just adding that until I'm happy with how that looks. When the glue was set and cooled, I took out my heat gun. I'm going to lightly go over the top and just remove any of the smaller little stringy bits of hot glue before I move on to the next step. Next, I started adding an orange mineral paint. So I'm going straight over the top. I'm actually going to paint over the top of the leaves and the vines as well, just so that I've got good coverage of this orange. I can go in and do a touch up of that. Obviously, I'm going to be layering other colors over the top. So I'm just going to go in with my first coat, and then I'm going to add a second coat when that's completely dry, and I'm also adding it to the bottom. So while my second coat is still wet, I'm going to start adding this lighter orangey mustard color, and I'm sort of sticking closer to the center. I really want to create some really nice tones, make this look a little bit more realistic. So I'm adding this over the top of my still wet orange paint and just sort of trying to blend it. I'm then going in with a lighter brown tone. Again, just adding it into the different sections, trying to blend those colors together until I'm happy with how it looks. I'm not going to have it go further or closer to the indents that we made though. I want those to be darker. And then I took out a green mineral paint. I'm adding that over the top of the leaves. I only ended up doing one coat, and this paint has a built-in sealer, so that was very helpful as well. I'm going to add that to each of the leaves, and then I'm going to add the same green over the top of the vines that we created with hot glue. Now, if you are not confident with the hot glue, you could leave that out, or perhaps you could use some wire or some ribbon and glue that to the tray after you finish painting to get a similar effect. Once the green paint was dry, I took out a darker brown, and I'm just going to go in and add that to the stalk, and I'm loving the texture that's coming through from that Cardinal Grace branch that we used with the hot glue. I'm just going to add one coat of this to the stalk. And then I'm going to add the same brown, but I'm working it down into the grooves that we made with the hot glue. And then I am wiping it back from the high points around that so that it sits mainly down in that groove. So I'm just using a wet wipe. The paint I have down already is dry and it has a built-in sealer. And I'm just going to continue to add that. I'm going to allow a little bit extra of the brown to peak in other sections as well. And then I went in with a sort of brighter brown, if that makes sense. Just as a little bit of extra contrast, I'm going over the top of my still slightly damp stalk there in the center, just to have it contrast a little bit more. When that was dry, I took out a dark brown glaze, and I'm using that over the top of the entire trinket tray, really making sure that it's going into all of those low points. I want this to give some definition, but it's also going to give us a bit of a vintage look. And then once I have finished adding that, I'm going to use a wet wipe to pull it back. So I'm wiping, and I'm also doing a bit of a dabbing motion as well, and just being careful. And then when that was dry, I took out a white chalk paint. I'm offloading it onto a paper towel, and then I'm going to go in and do some dry brushing. So this is going to hit the high points. It's going to give us some more definition of those beautiful redesign castings that we have glued down. It's going to lighten up the tray a little bit as well. We'll still have that vintage look, and we'll still have the definition of the glaze, but this is catching the high points that have maybe been a little bit hidden under that glaze. When that was dry, I used a satin clear coat over the top to seal our trinket tray, make sure it's nice and protected and give it a bit of shine. And I did then decide at the last minute to add a gold metallic paint around the outer edge, just really subtly, just running my brush over the top of the edges. And I'll add another coat of clear coat over the top of that when it's dry. Next, I want to make a tag to go on my pumpkin. So I took out Redesign's Farmhouse Frost A4 decoupage paper. This is from their most recent release. And I'm going to be cutting out this lovely design here that has the corn and the buffalo check. I thought that definitely went with my fall project today. I'm going to be adding it to this tag here. But before that, I decided that I would dip the end of a paintbrush in some orange paint and just go over the top of the red berries. I felt like if I made them orange, it would feel a little bit more like fall as opposed to Christmas. So always keep that in mind, that you can subtly change the decoupage fiber papers if you need them to tie in with your project a bit different. And I also used a little bit of that same green that I used on the pumpkin leaves to go over the top of the sections that looked like they had a little bit of snow. And that was a really easy way to make this fit my fall decor a bit easier. When it was dry, I used Decoupage Gel in Matte by Redesign. I'm going over the top of my card tag there with a coat of that, and then I'm pressing my fiber paper into that wet medium, and then I'm going over the top of it with another coat of the decoupage gel. When that was dry, I trimmed off the excess paper, carefully going around the edges to trim off the overlapping pieces, and then I decided I would cut the tag a little bit shorter as well. I'm going to add a little bit of the antique gold metallic paint that I used around the outside edge of the pumpkin. I'm adding that to the tag top, and I'm also lightly going around the edges of the tag as well. And then when that was dry, I took out this jute style ribbon that I had in my stash. I'm going to thread the tag through that, wrap the ribbon around the stalk of the pumpkin, and I'm going to tie a simple bow. I'm just tying it on so that if I want to take the tag off at some stage and use it somewhere else, I can do that. So I'm going to tie a simple bow. And here's a look at the finished fall pumpkin trinket tray. I had so much fun doing this project. I think it turned out really sweet. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, we would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of the videos from the Redesign with Prima team. Thanks for watching.